morning. I'm Gary with Van Mark Products, and welcome to the VSI virtual training, the Van Mark portion. And today we're just going to show you a few basics about a bending brake. When you're doing vinyl siding and or putting in windows, soffits, a bending brake is an integral part of the process. It's a tool you'll be using quite regularly in that business. So, you saw the PowerPoint. We kind of just wanted to touch on the basics, so we just wanted to give you a little video here to kind of show you those in action, so to speak. So, a bending brake. You see a full shot here. This is the most common 10.5 foot. Obviously a trim cutter. Basically, it's a bending brake. It's set up to bend metal. Very easy to operate. Opens and closes from the top. Once you have the metal in and positioned, it just bends from down here. And the other thing mentioned there is the hemming pocket, which when we get into bending a few shapes, you'll see how the hemming pocket is used. We also have multi-gauges on the brake, which are very helpful, as they will show you, number one, where a cutter cuts, and number two, the angles of the bends you're using. So, it's also shown on a unistand, which is the most common used. As you can see in the PowerPoint, there's various options for stands. We offer about 5 different stands. And you can also bench mount this in a truck. So it's all going to depend on your application as an installer on how you set your job site up. So let's kind of jump right into what you would do with the brake. The first thing is you're going to use trim coil. Standard roll of trim coil. I already have it out of the box for ease. 24 inches wide by 50 foot long is the standard. Many ways to work with a trim coil. What we find the most common is using a coil dispenser. You simply pop the bar out, load your coil in the dispenser, pop the bar back in and secure it. You've got your roll of trim coil. You just cut the tape. Back that trim coil off. And feed it right out of the coil dispenser into your brake. When you're pulling out 6 foot, 8 foot, 10 foot, whatever you need, the most efficient way to do it is to load that. You can, I'm going to turn so you can see this, you're just going to feed that coil directly into your brake. Once you've measured, you'll have a mark here. You'll line this multi-gauge up with your mark, and you'll cross-cut that with your trim cutter. You can now move that piece of coil down into your brake, lock it. The same trim cutter you just cross-cut with. So your mark is there, you've already marked your coil. That same trim cutter goes to the brake and cuts that piece down to size. You also have another option. If you're not using a trim cutter, you can use a utility knife. With a utility knife, you would simply score. You would come back from the other side, continue that score. You're now going to bend that piece and snap it off. That's kind of the old school way. I would say most people today use a trim cutter. The utility blade, if you've got a blade, you will wear your brake. It's not going to wear out in 2 months, 3 months, even a year probably if you're careful. But you just have to keep in mind when you use a razor blade like that, you're going to have a little bit of wear and tear on your brake. It also leaves a little burr on the edge of the metal where the trim cutter doesn't leave the burr. Okay, one of the tools we'll show you how to utilize is the trim former. It's very similar to the cutter in that it simply mounts on the brake and rolls. It comes standard with a brick mold die, which is 908 casing around windows and doors. When you purchase it, it also comes with a rib form die for putting ribs in fascia. The dies are easily interchangeable with an Allen wrench right here. You can change those out in just a couple of minutes very quickly. Most people will probably use the brick mold die more than the rib mold die if you do a lot of windows and doors. So now we'll move on to a couple of shapes you can make with this. Okay, one of the most common shapes you'll use will be a window casing with a built-in J channel, and we will use our trim former to put the brick mold in it, which will jump over standard 908 casing, aka brick mold. So you have your blank that you've pulled off the coil dispenser. Again, you guys would have this pre-measured. I'm just going to kind of do this from memory. So you make a 90-degree bend. You'll be following the lines on your template. Second bend is a hem or an overbend. From there, you drop it into the hemming pocket and you make the 180-degree hem. From there, you come back for another 90-degree bend, and you've in essence made your J channel. You're now going to take that piece and put it in the brake without locking it. You're going to take your trim former. You'll mount that right on the rail like your trim cutter. Again, I can't stress enough, you guys would measure this. I'm going to just eyeball it. You're going to run the metal, measure it so the metal runs right up against the edge of that trim former. You're going to lock your brake. You form that metal. Now, what's very handy when you're making this shape and using the trim cutter is the trim cutter now goes on the brake and it'll cut that piece of metal off. You've got your scrap piece, might be able to use that later for something else. You put that piece of metal back in the brake. For this purposes, I'm just going to put the piece of brick mold on there as my measuring tool. Bend that 90 degrees. And you've in essence built a window casing with the brick mold built in, with a built-in J. Goes right over that brick mold, has the same contour. Window or door here, siding coming in there. Allows you to do that in one piece where you don't have two pieces, which would cause you to have to caulk there. Just one more thing you don't have to have as a potential wear item. Okay, you've pre-cut your blank to do some basic fascia board. Again, break opens from the top. You'll slide the metal in. One tip you can measure, but when you come to the edge of this green vinyl strip, that is an automatic 5/8 inch measurement. So on a average fascia board, you're going to bend that to 150 degrees, and you're going to hem that, which was put it in the hemming pocket and crush it all the way. And you come back. Notice again, I didn't have to measure this. It's all 5/8 of an inch. So you've put your edge on there. Now Now we've changed out the dies on our trim former and we've gone from the brick mold to a rib form. A rib form will put a strengthening rib in fascia, which basically just strengthens it so you don't get any oil canning or movement on that coil. Lock your brake, run your trim former through, you formed a rib. Take your metal back, and let's say you don't want to hem both sides for either reason, or just there, you just take that up to 90 degrees. And you've created a fascia board with a hemmed side, a regular side, and with a rib down the middle. Okay, you've seen some basics of how the brake works, opens, closes, bends, and hems, the most important parts. What we're going to show you now are some of the more common bends that you would use every day on the job site. What we have to help you learn this, we have a training tool. We call it a bending template. It comes as a sheet, heavy paper, and it has some of the basic bends you're going to want to make. Once you have these, they're perforated, so you can cut them into these small pieces. What do you do with these small pieces? All you simply do with these Just take a pencil, line it up on your piece of paper, make the lines, move it to the other side, make sure it's justified to the same point. And you've now put the pencil marks on the bending template. You can repeat that for each of these. You'll see they're both marked on both sides. They'll also show the finished side. So when you look at the piece of metal, you're going to see what your finished side is, and it'll tell you if your finished side is up or down. Once you put the marks on there, when you put it in the brake, you're going to line up so you can see your number. That's how you know you have it justified in the correct direction. I want to start off with probably the most basic shape you're going to need. It's a simple J channel. Again, the green brake measures at 5/8 of an inch, so it's automatic. If you need a 5/8 or quote unquote a 1/2 inch J, you simply put the metal in, bend it, drop it into your hemming pocket, make that 180-degree overbend, line it back up on the edge of the green vinyl, bend 90 degrees, bring it out. Again, a 5/8 inch J is an automatic measurement. If you need a bigger J, you would make a pencil mark. And you've made a J channel. Okay, the next shape we'll do is a drip edge. Really more for roofing, but it's a very easy shape to make on the brake. If you've been redoing some fascia and working with the gutters at all, you may have to make this. So again, I've pre-marked these from your templates. When you have the line, remember that your number's always out. So my template would tell me bend number 1 is 90 degrees. So I bend that to 90 degrees. I pull it out, I find number 2. Bend number 2 is a hem. So for a hem, remember we bend it over to 150 degrees, we put it back in the hemming pocket and hem it. Bend number 3. Again, I can see the number 3. That's a 30-degree bend. This is where the multi-gauges will come in. You can move that multi-gauge over and see what your bend is. So in essence, what you've done is you've built a little drip edge, which goes the shingles over it and drips down into the gutter. The third shape we're going to bend, we call the F channel or the inside corner post. Again, I've pre-marked my metal. So you go to your sizing. Go to your number 1. Step number 1 is a hem. So I bend it as far as I can. I put it in the hemming pocket and I hem it. Bend number 2 is 90 degrees. Bend number 3 is also 90 degrees. My bend number 4 is a hem. So we bring it over, put it in the hemming pocket, and hem it. And my bend number 5 is again 90 degrees. In essence, we've built an inside corner post. You'd have siding coming in here and here. This also will work if you're running up on a Soffit Miter. You can have the lead of your siding, the top of your siding coming in here, and your soffit going in here. So this is a very common piece that you can make and use in many, many places on the home. For the next one, we're going to make a Soffit Miter. Some people will call this T-bar. So again, you'll follow your steps. Step number 1, lock on your metal. Step number 1 is a hem. So you're going to create that finished edge. Step number 2 is a 90-degree bend. So we'll bend that to 90. We find step number 3. Step number 3 is again a hem. So we're going to bring it all the way over. We're going to put it down in the hemming pocket, and we're going to hem it. Step number 4 is a 90-degree bend. So we take that to 90 degrees. Step number 5 is a hem. Remember, when you're using our bending templates, your step, your number is always outside the brake. So when you're hemming, you're simply bending it all the way, putting in the hemming pocket. So what you've built is a soffit miter. Nail up into the corner. You can do it as a miter at a 90 degree, and your soffit will go in here and here. Or you can put it at a 45-degree angle, whatever works for whatever's needed for your soffit. Okay, the last shape we'll do today is an outside corner post. This is going to be really important if you're ever out on a job site and you've pre-purchased some corner posts and you just don't have enough, or there's a situation where you just what is manufactured, pre-manufactured doesn't fit. So again, we're just going to follow our bending templates. So our step number 1 is a 90-degree bend. Our step number 2 is a hem. Our step number 3 is a 90-degree bend. We come to step number 4, 90-degree bend. Step number 5 is a hem. Step number 6 is another 90-degree bend. And the final, step number 7, is a 90-degree bend as well. And you've just built a corner post. Corner here, siding in there. When you're finished at the end of the day, and the roll is held nice and tight, simply back it up. Tape it. And at the end of the day, it will fit right back in the box. Okay, so there's some of your basic shapes and an overall view of a brake and how it's used generally. Obviously, a brake, like anything, practice makes perfect. So when you get to that point, it's always good to have some scrap metal, your bending templates, and some scrap pieces of metal that, you know, scratched up, whatever. You can put the bends on there, make the bends 5, 6, 7 times in a row, and you learn the sequence. Before you know it, you're making soffit miters, you're making window casings with built-in J, just like a pro. So I want to thank you for your time. If you ever have any questions, Rob will know how to get a hold of us, or you can just call us at 1-800-VANMARK or go through our website and we can answer any questions you might have on brakes. Thanks and have a great day.